So once you go into the platform, you go to resources, and here is the recording from last week. No, every week we'll post them. All right, so what are we going to do today? Well, it's the first in a session of how to develop receptive skills with our students. So what are the receptive skills? Can you tell me? There are two. There's a clue. One begins with R.
Yeah. Reading and listening.
Reading and listening. We're also going to look at what we call sub-skills, which are how we divide those main skills up into smaller sub-skills. We'll look at those later. There are different ones. Okay, so what is a text is the first one, defining what a text is. We'll be looking at different reading skills, or I should call them sub-skills from the beginning. We'll have a break at about 6:15. Coming back, we'll have a demonstration of the pre, while, and post framework and analyze it. All right. So the first part, we need to open our handbooks at Unit 7. What is a text? In my version of the handbook, it's page 38. So could you get that open? Okay, while you get it open, let me ask you a couple of questions. What is a riddle? Can anyone tell me what is a riddle? Have you heard of the word acertijo?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so that's a riddle. It's like a verbal puzzle, isn't it? Right, so most of these you will know. What is a tale? T-A-L-E-S.
Like a story?
It's a story, yeah. Okay, now you have to look at these types of texts, both of you, and decide which ones are written and which are spoken, and which can be both. And then you've got to mark them with W, S, or V on the lines. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to do this, 2 to 3 minutes. You read through them, you decide. If you're not sure, you can always Google them. So let me start the clock. Thirty seconds left. All right, let's pause there. Paola, can you help us with the first column?
Calendar, right?
Yeah,
Instruction, right? And or both.
it could be both, couldn't it? Yeah, because you can have oral instructions, can't you?
Conversation, spoken,
Yeah, spoken, so it would be.
dictionary entries, writing,
Yeah.
forms, I don't know.
What do you think, Christian? Is a form a spoken or written? Think of the verbs that go with form, like fill in or fill out a form.
Yeah, it's right.
It suggests writing, doesn't it?
Letters, right? Emails,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Personal introductions, both.
Yeah.
Textbooks, right?
Yeah.
Postcards, you say, right? Invitations, right?
Yeah.
Entertainment guides, right?
Although probably, I mean, it's probably written, but you could imagine that there would be an oral invitation, right? I mean, you could do it by your phone.
Okay.
Depending on how formal it is, obviously more formal invitations will be written. Entertainment guides.
Right?
Yeah, probably in a magazine or on a website, right?
Yeah. Advertisements, right?
Okay, but couldn't they be on the radio?
Okay, both. And notice, also both
Notices.
or not?
Well, a notice in English, at least, is usually written like a. So if we let's just Google notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost always something that is written if you look on the Google. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right.
Often quite short, but and they usually impart important information.
Yes.
Welcome, Sarai. We're recording the session, so you haven't missed anything, really. And we're looking at these different types of texts and whether they're written or spoken. So we've decided that notices is probably spoken. Sorry, written. And what about timetables?
Me or other person? Whatever.
Well, let's ask someone else. How about Christian? What would you say a timetable is, written or spoken?
I think the timetables, both.
Why? It's right.
Because in a timetable, you can write all your activities that you need to do, and spoken because when you need to do the explication.
But because it's a table, which suggests it's visual, right? So if you look, here's a timetable. Not really spoken, are they? Because they involve some diagram, really. It's something more visual. All right, so I would say definitely writing, no? Yeah, let's put that. What about rhymes? What is a rhyme anyway?
Both.
Let's have a look on Google again. So a rhyme is words that rhyme: cries, flies, pies, wise, and sighs. So they're actually written, but the idea is, the intention is that they are read aloud, right?
Okay, but when the people say, Ladybug, Ladybug, or bye, see you raccoon, or something like that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. They're meant to be read aloud in voz alta, right? So we could probably say that they're both. They're often written down, but read aloud. So I would say both. and riddles. And we usually write these down as well so we can remember them, right?
Yeah, to
Riddle. I can fly, but I have no wings. I can cry, but I have no eyes. What am I? So again, the purpose is to read them aloud, but we kind of have to write them down so we can remember them. So both fragment stories or fragments of them, probably both, right? Although the other types of stories, like anecdotes, you could say that they're usually spoken.
okay.
Now, diaries.
Writing.
All right, but what about things like podcasts and so on? They're a bit like diaries, aren't they?
Okay.
So you can have audio diaries, can't you? You can record them.
Okay.
What about magazine articles and newspaper articles?
Right.
Yeah. Probably encyclopedias, yeah?
Yeah. Right. Public signs.
Public signs, yeah. A sign is usually visual, isn't it? As is a map.
Maps.
Usually also travel brochures.
Yeah. Now with Google, you can listen the map.
Can
Because-
you? Yeah, I suppose you can. Let's put both then. Yeah, the one's specially designed for people with hearing difficulties.
Spoken oral report.
Yeah. Tales. Now, tales were usually passed from person to person.
Spoken.
Originally, but then they would be written down later. So originally they would be spoken, but let's put both, because after a time they get codified, they get written down.
All right.
How about a poem?
Right. That's
Yeah, yeah,
tell them.
written, but remember we often read them aloud, don't we? So that's why I put both. Catalogs.
Right.
Yeah. Anecdotes we mentioned. Biographies.
Well, right.
Yeah, I would say, but yeah, because they're usually quite long and written in books. Warning signs.
Right.
Yeah. They're quite simple signs, usually warning signs, because they have to be very direct. So here's an example of warning signs. And a visual written. Rules and regulations.
Right.
Yeah, they're usually formal, so they're written. Recipes.
Right.
Right, could be both though.
Yeah, because in YouTube there are a lot of recipes.
Yeah. Menus.
Right.
Usually. Food labels.
Also right.
Yeah, a label is something that's visual. Reviews of restaurants.
I think it's right, like online.
Yeah. Tickets. Bus, plane, or train. Not
Right.
usually spoken, are they? No,
No,
written.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Personal notes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the word note suggests writing, but you could also say because you can record them
But
and then transfer them into the written form. So possibly both. Travel guides.
right.
Yeah, but probably both because podcasts that are travel guides, aren't there? Horoscopes can also be audio, like on the radio, but they're often in newspapers, horoscopos, and descriptions of photos. That would be usually the description of a photo appears underneath the photo in a newspaper, so it's probably written.
Yeah.
All right. So, question, what do learners need to know in order to understand a text, whether this is written or spoken? Any ideas?
The context or the use?
Okay, let's make a note some ideas down and we'll check. So the context of use. Yeah, I think that's a very good one. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, the social situation in which it's being used. Yeah. Any other ideas?
Because it is the medium to communicate. All this letter, text.
All right. How about let's take an example like a newspaper article. What do we look at first when we look at a newspaper article, for example? Usually the headline, right? And maybe the picture. Yeah. So that gives us that sort of layout, the organization. Yeah. So those are all useful. Things to help us understand a text. But what about grammar and vocabulary? Are they important? Yeah, most people would say agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then maybe down at the bottom level, things like punctuation. All right. So Oh, there are some other things as well. Where and when the text occurs, so that's a bit like the context. Who the writer or the speaker is, and to whom he or she is addressing the message. Also, why is it important for the reader or listener to read or listen or interact with the text? Agree so far?
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to ask you to look at a set of texts and in pairs discuss the questions in the box. Here are the texts. We've got 4 of them. What do you think? What type of text is this first one? Cipro.
It's a medicine, information about a medicine.
It's a medicine label, isn't it? Yeah. It's spoken or written?
Written.
Written. Hello, you've reached Carol Hardy's extension. Please leave a message after the tone. What is that?
A message. Noise. No,
A
message.
voicemail?
It's like a telephone message, yes. Yeah, on a voicemail. Remember when we used to have recorded messages on your phone? Yeah, we don't see those so often anymore, but yeah, they still exist. Is it spoken or written?
Spoken.
Yeah. Floor. 7, please. Thanks. Where would that be?
A conversation.
Yeah, so it's spoken, but where? What's the context? Peace off. When do people ask you that? Have you ever been to Torre Mayor or one of those very big skyscrapers? An office building,
Yeah.
right? And you go into the elevator, and maybe the person in the elevator with you, they ask you which floor do you want to go to? So that's the situation, yeah. And what about the last one? What does it look like? It's a list, a to-do list. Very good, yeah. Is it written or spoken?
Written.
It's written, yeah. Okay, so what you're going to do here is talk together, Sarai and Paula, and I want you to figure out here's Christian, so he can help you. Look at the 4 texts. Oh, we seem to have lost them on this page. Oh, here they are. 4 texts. And discuss the questions in this box here. Where do they occur? Who is the writer? Who is the speaker? who is he speaking to? Or who is she speaking to? Who is he writing to? And number 4, why is it important for the reader or listener to read or listen or interact with the text? All right. So I'm going to leave you 3 to discuss those questions about these texts, 4 texts. Yeah. How many texts are there, Christian?
What? Sorry?
How many texts are there? How many texts are you going to discuss?
About 4.
4. There are 4 of them, yes. And I'll give you about 5 minutes, starting now. So start with number 1, then number 2, Carol Hardy, number 3 and 4. All right.
Andrew, are you there? Sarai, Christian, this is something that we are going to do alone or with.
No, it says it in pairs. Discuss the questions in the box. There's 3 of you, okay? So discuss.
Okay. Christian, sorry. Where do you think the first text occurs?
In the text 1, I think that it's occur in medicine. It's like the instructions or the ingredients. So I think that in a medicine.
Yeah. Probably in, well, it's a level of the medicine, no? There is no, I think word doesn't apply here. But yeah, when you are reading about a medicine, the text occurs.
Perhaps a drugstore where you are gonna buy it, so you wanna see where is the information of the medicine in order to buy it or not.
Yeah. And who is the writer?
The pharmaceutical, I believe.
The labs, yeah. And to whom is this information?
The final consumer.
Yeah, also the doctors or yeah, for people who consume this product. And why is it important for the reader?
Because maybe with some ingredients cause an allergic.
Yeah, because And you can, in the end of the level, set recommend storage and set about the temperature that they need to be. And yeah, if you want to know where this medicine is produced, there is the address. Okay, and the second text.
Okay.
Well, the where this text or could be during a phone call when you try to call someone.
Yes, the second text, it's when you make a phone call and anyone or anybody responds. It's
Yeah, in
the,
an office because it's not your house. You don't have extension.
Yes, actually, that it's a really good point. Perhaps in an office or in, I don't know, maybe an university or uh, some city building.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the well? Why is important this message?
To make sure that they notice the call and to give the message to actually reach it and when he's available soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the third text. It occurs in a building, probably in because talk about seven floors, and it's like somebody asking about which floor, and others say, oh, okay, it's seven. In elevator, said Andrew.
Perhaps a crowded elevator, or if you can't reach the buttons,
Yeah,
and someone else, try to give you, make a favor.
yeah, and
And why? Maybe because if it's someone who actually works there to do that, to give that service, is to give the attention, and if it's someone just making a favor, perhaps as a social interaction.
yeah, problem. And Christian, what about the fourth text?
okay, the fourth text. Where and when the text occurred. In the four, I think that it's a list that the things that you need to do in the day.
Yeah. Where the text occur?
When you go out, you make a list to you don't forget anything.
Yeah, this list is about management of the house, because set bills, kids, groceries. Probably, of course, in the house.
Can be a personal list or also like for example the head of the house to the rest of the family members.
Yeah. And who is the writer?
The writer, like said Sarai, maybe the head of the family to the other family members.
Yeah, like a parent, I think. And mm,
To whom it addresses. Well, it's the same, no? I think that it's to any family member, any member of your family that needs to do. It's the list that you have to do.
yeah, the same person who write, because it's a note personal.
Okay.
And
Yes.
why it's important for the reader.
Don't forget anything.
Yeah, don't forget nothing. Well, we finished, Andrew.
Right. Yes. Good job. You analysed those pretty well. Yeah. So focusing on why it's important. Well, if the number one, if the reader doesn't read it properly, they could overdose, do themselves harm, right? Number two, why is it important for the listener? Well, they need to know that the message can be left and that Carol Hardy will return the message. You know, for Carol, it could be important not to lose business or receive some important personal information. And like number three, well, if they don't get the number of the floor right, they could go to the wrong floor, get lost, so on. Number five, yes. Number four, well, yeah. Imagine if you forgot to pick up your kids from school. Serious consequences, yeah. So they all of these have quite important messages, and let's try and remember that spoken and written texts are often used to communicate or transfer information in everyday life. Not exclusively. I mean, there's some things like poems that have a different purpose, right? A more aesthetic purpose, but most of the texts your students will need, spoken or written, will be transferring information, exchanging information. Now, let's have a look at task 3. Look at the characteristics of written and spoken text and write W or S next to each statement. So the first one, unclear sentence division. Right, well, it's spoken, isn't it? Because, you know, when you're having a conversation or a monologue like I'm doing now, sometimes it can be difficult to identify when the sentence starts and when it stops. You know? That's just the nature of spoken language. But number 2 would be written, right? Yeah, because it's easy to spot where the sentence stops in a written sentence, because what do you have as clues to tell you whether it's a sentence or not? Well, you've got a capital letter. You've got punctuation, full stop. And when those are missing, then we criticize people's writing, right, don't we? Okay, so I think we can do this all together, 3 through 10. Christian, let's start with you. Visual content conventions. Do you think that's going to be spoken or written? Is it a characteristic of a written text or spoken text? Visual conventions.
Written characteristic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because written is a visual phenomenon, isn't it? If you can't see, you can't read, unless it's braille. Then you think you're feeling. Okay, but it's non-auditory. How about no visual conventions?
Spoken.
Spoken. Lexically complex and varied.
Spoken. Or not?
Why do you say that?
Because, well, at least you are consult a word and you are looking for and you read the lexis of the word.
Well, when you're speaking.
Yeah, but when you're speaking, it's spoken. When you are speaking, you are using a lexical complex.
Yeah, but is it more complex or less complex, the writing, lexically? Do you use more vocabulary when you write or more vocabulary when you speak? Think about it. When you're writing, you've got more time to think about it, right? So you can consult a dictionary like this. Right? You can think about your words.
Yeah.
Look at the dictionary. So writing tends to be more complex lexically because of that planning. You can think of different words that mean the same thing and put it into the text.
Okay. It's right.
So it's writing, yeah. Whereas 6 would be something is lexically simpler and can resort to outside references.
Spoken.
Spoken, yeah, because you're more in the context, and also when you're speaking, you're thinking at the same time. Sometimes you don't think. Sometimes you struggle to find words, right? Because you're thinking and speaking at the same time. So it can be difficult to access words from your memory. Yeah. With writing, you can access words from different sources, like I don't know, check online. So it tends to be simpler. And we often repeat the same words when we're speaking. So which is grammatically more explicit? Is it writing or speaking?
Written.
Yes, why?
Because you're more careful when you're making a text, grammatically speaking.
Yes, you're normally clearer. You make your meaning clear through grammar and lexis. So speaking is less explicit usually because you will often rely on the context to get the meaning across. How about number 9? Relatively instructed with lots of repetition and rephrasing.
Spoken.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Certainly in speech, we often repeat ourselves. And how about 10? Does it require a clear internal structure? Speech, or is that more like writing?
Writing.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have to be thinking about logical structure of the text. All right. So now, let me just make a couple of points more about this using our PowerPoint. Yeah, so these just to confirm those answers. I'm recording this so you can go back and look at it again later. English. So, how can we use writing an oral text in the classroom to develop the 4 skills? Of reading, listening, writing, and speaking. Maybe we can brainstorm some ideas. I'll write them here on the I'll annotate them here. Any ideas? Some of you are teachers already, so you must have some idea of how to use texts, written and spoken, to develop reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. Any ideas?
Maybe to reading with text and the student answer some questions about the text that you give.
Okay, so that could be reading for detailed comprehension.
Yes.
But what about if you have to, sometimes we get the students to read very quickly. So that could be reading for general understanding. Reading quickly for general understanding. Just to get a brief idea of what the text is about. Do you think the same thing applies for listening? Yeah, right. You can listen, just try and get the general idea.
That depends of the level of the English of the learners, right?
I'm afraid you're going to have to try and develop this skill, whatever the learner's level is. They still need to be able to understand, get a general understanding of a text quickly. But that's for us as teachers to develop that skill. Likewise, listening, we can listen for detail. What about writing and speaking?
Perhaps to write a short story and then share it with the rest of the class.
Why not? Yeah. Well, like read it aloud to the, would that be speaking skills? Or it could be just tell a story using just nouns or verbs that you've made notes of. Any other things for writing and speaking? I did this with one of I'm teaching a group of university students at CDE, which is like a university in Santa Fe. And I'm teaching them academic English. And this often involves mixing skills. So, for example, they'll have a discussion, like a seminar discussion, as they would have in a university. Yeah, about some academic subject. And then afterwards, they write a summary of the discussion. So very often we are in our lessons, we combine skills together. Does that make sense? All right, so think that's everything on what is a text. Okay, here's some possible other answers. So we can use reading texts to develop sub-skills of reading, such as reading for gist, known as skimming, or scanning. Scanning is where we read a text very quickly in order to try and find some information in it that we need for a practical purpose. Like you want to take a train to Lucca, and you want to know what time the train leaves from Observatoria, right? So you look at the timetable and you're looking, okay, I want to leave 6 o'clock tonight, right? So that's scanning, reading quickly for a piece of information. Reading for detail is more about looking closely at sentences and paragraphs for ideas that we're interested in. Now, intensive reading is often when we're looking at a text and we want our students to focus on maybe the use of the past simple and the past continuous structures. Yeah. So here's a text. Students underline examples of the past simple. Now, underline with a squiggly line examples of the past continuous. Right? So that would be intensive reading. And reading for inference could be getting the students to understand the what are the opinions? What is the opinion of the writer on a particular subject? Sometimes they don't state it very explicitly, right? So we need to infer. So audio text can be used to develop similar sub-skills for listening. Now, speaking involves listening and writing involves reading. This implies we can use oral and written text as models for the kinds of writing or speaking we want our students to produce, such as emails or conversations. We can get students to analyze and replicate their structure. Yeah. But we can also combine two productive skills known as speaking and writing. As we mentioned, you have a discussion about a topic and then you get the students to write a summary of it.
For example, can be just catching keywords from a conversation. And
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah, that would be more like listening for detail. Oh, great. So that's the end of texts. But we can move on now to actual reading skills. Remember, this is all being recorded. So if you missed anything, don't worry too much because you can look back at the video. It's very easy to manipulate the video. I'll show you at the end how to do it. All right, so next is reading. Oh. Sorry. Look at the sentence. The boy was surprised because the girl was much faster at running than he was.
Recording progress.
The boy was surprised because the girl was much faster at running than he was. So I'd like the three of you to discuss these two questions. Why was the boy surprised? What do you need to understand this sentence fully? Give you a couple of minutes to discuss that.
I think the sentences is two ideas. So the key word is because, and if you understood the first idea, how is joined to the second, you can complete understand all the message.
Yes, well, so to understand the sentence, you need to know maybe past simple and past progressive and comparative, because it's yes, it's because it's the time of the sentence, maybe.
Yeah, you need to know when happened this. Is in the past, now, or in the future. When of the two acts happened first. What about you, Sarai? What do you think? I can't hear you. No, it's weird because your microphone is on. There is no image that it could be off. Well, maybe you can write your ideas.
All right, so Sarai seems to be having a few problems. So I think, Christian, you mentioned knowledge of grammar, right?
Yes.
what specific aspects of grammar do they need to know then?
Because the sentence or where the students can understand the sentence, they need to know in what sense is written the sentence.
Okay, so which tenses can you see here?
I think that the sentence is in past simple.
Yeah. Was surprised, was faster than he was, right? All in the past simple. Yeah.
And also the students need to know about comparative.
Yeah. Yeah. And also that you can have two clauses linked together with a connector like because. Yeah. But so grammar is obviously one thing, but are there any other things that you need to know to understand this sentence fully? And it's connected to the first question. Why was the boy surprised? Are girls usually faster at running than boys? In general terms, boys are usually a bit faster, aren't they? Yeah. And we know this from our life experience. That's why men and women compete separately at the Olympics, right? So it's part of our experience of the world. Right? So that makes sense for us because we have it. It's in accordance with our schemata, okay, which is all about our previous knowledge of the world. So background knowledge is important, isn't it, when we're reading? We all bring our own expectations and experiences to reading a text. All right, let's move on. But we also need to understand the letters. So we need to decode the letters individually. We need to know that letters join together to make words. Now, some languages, lots of letters are connected together, and it's difficult to see where the word boundaries are. What the individual words mean, the grammar of the words, as you mentioned, Christian, and our assumptions, socio-cultural assumptions, our knowledge of the world. This might vary from culture to culture. Maybe in some African countries, women are faster at running than men. All right, so let's look at the second sentence. Then he found out that her mother had won a medal for running at the Olympic Games. All right, so then it makes more, it starts to make coherent sense. So coherence is all about making logical sense, whereas cohesion is something else. But let's explain what coherence is first. So we need to understand the connection between the sentences. The second sentence gives us a possible reason why the girl was so good at running. So we use our knowledge of the world to see the connection between these two sentences. Does that make sense? Good. The grammatical links between the sentences or cohesion help us to see the connection between them. All right, so this is a more grammatical aspect. When we're working with students on this, we can ask questions about these pronouns. Okay, so who does he refer to here? Who is he referring to? Is it the girl or the boy?
The boy.
The boy. Huh? Is it the boy or the girl?
The girl.
Yes. Sorry. His knowledge of these grammatical links can help us with reading as well. And sometimes we need to make students aware of this. Yeah, it's easy enough in your first language, but when you're learning a second language, you're not always aware of this, right? Because sometimes the pronouns are different, right? So, for example, in Spanish, it would be su. Yeah, but with su, it's not that clear what it's referring to. It could be the boy or the girl. We just know from our experience with Spanish that it's probably logically it's going to be the girl. So, reading sub-skills. When we read, we do not necessarily read everything in a text. What we read depends on why and how we are reading. So we read different text types and we read for different reasons. Okay. So all of these kinds of texts or text types are different from one another. They all have different lengths, layouts, topics, and kinds of language within them. So learning how to read involves learning how to handle these different text types. So for a postcard, for example, we know that it has two sections. One is with the stamp and the address. And here on the left side is like a message, yeah, from the writer to the reader. So that's layout. Yeah. Topics. If it's an informal message, an informal email, it's probably going to be like personal news. Could be a topic there. Yeah, what's happening in my personal life. And these have been kind of superseded by social networks, haven't they? All right, so let's have a look at different reading sub-skills. Now, this is going to be part one of the TKT module 1 exam. You're going to need to know about sub-skills, not just reading, but also listening and the two productive skills, writing and speaking. So, oops, don't want to give away too much there. So let's go back to our work book, a handbook. It's Unit 8. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes to match the letter to the definition. So reading for specific information. Let's do that together. Which of these is reading for specific information? Any ideas?
I think is when we do this, we don't read the whole text. We hurry over most of it until we find the information we are interested. Example, when we look a number in a telephone directory.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this word scanning describes the movement of your eyes across the text. Yeah, a bit like when we're escaneando. Yeah, movement of the eyes across the text. So that would be, and it's done quickly. So that's why it says we hurry. Yeah? Hurry is doing something quickly. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do this, the other ones for yourself. Individual. Here we go then. How about reading for gist then?
I think it's the last. We read
Yes,
quickly.
it is. Yeah. Yeah. So, reading for detail.
It's the first.
Yeah. So it's much more, you're reading something much more closely. Reading every word, every idea in the text. Extensive reading.
I'm not sure, but I think this involves reading long pieces of text.
Yes. Yeah, often for pleasure, like when you're reading a novel. So that's called extensive reading. And intensive, this is often used in the classroom to examine the language. That makes sense?
What is the difference between intensive reading? Because intensive reading is for looking something in specific, but also scanning, reading the specific information.
Now, intensive reading is a way of getting the students to focus on language within the text, so that we want to, when we're using a text as a vehicle in preparation for a vocabulary lesson or a grammar lesson, okay? So we might get students to look at this paragraph, right? Can you see any multi-word verbs in this paragraph? Right? Underline the multi-word verbs. Right? So here's an example: work out. Right? Look for. Those are examples of multi-word verbs. Verbs that involve a verb and a participle or a preposition. Okay, so that's intensive reading.
Okay.
All right. What was the other one that you had a query about?
I was comparing with reading for specific information, scanning.
Reading for specific information, yes. Well, imagine that that's like the timetable idea, okay? You want to take a train to Toluca, and you want to find one that's leaving at 6, right? So you have a timetable in front of you, and you're looking, okay, your eye is moving across the page, looking for a departure at 6 p.m. So you're looking for 6 p.m. in the text. You're often looking for dates, numbers, maybe a place name, like Toluca, 6 p.m. So that's scanning. Intensive is often can also be slower than scanning. Scanning's usually done quickly. Because you're in a hurry. If you're going to Toluca at 6 p.m., you've got to get moving, right? All right. Well, it'll take a while for you to learn these concepts. So don't worry if you haven't got it right now. We're going to have a little demonstration lesson. Before we go for our break. Shouldn't take long, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay. So let's begin. I'd like you to be the students. Okay. Intermediate, upper intermediate, adult students. All right. So I'm the teacher, you're the students, please. What comes to your mind when you see this picture?
The environment.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a nice picture of trees there. Not so nice below. All right. Do you think it's going to be a positive text that we're going to read about the environment, or is it a bit something that might worry you? Do you think it's going to be positive or negative?
Negative. And I think,
Yeah, maybe a bit negative, right?
yeah, because the time life is in the end, and now is the building and the sand. It's not life.
So maybe it's environmental damage. Okay. Okay, so first we're going to match, before we read the text, we're going to focus on some of the vocabulary in the text. Okay, so I'm going to put some words on the screen here. See if you can match the definitions. So outer space, ecological footprints, developed country, environmentally friendly. Which would you match here? On the left, the words, on the right, the definitions. So what's outer space? Any ideas? What's the definition of outer space? Is it a rich country with an advanced economy and technological infrastructure? No. What's the definition of outer space?
The physical universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere.
Yes. What about ecological footprints?
The last one, the sum of an individual.
Some of an individual's or entity's impact on the environment, exactly. Developed country?
The first one, a rich country.
Yeah. And finally, design not to harm the natural environment.
Environmentally friendly.
Yes, good. Now, let's just work a little bit with these words because it's a lesson. Okay, so I'm going to share you a slide, and you're going to have the ability to write on this slide or move things on the slide. Okay. So I'm going to give you each a slide. So the first one is Christian. Here's your name at the top. Okay. Paula, you are slide number 3. And sorry, Anna is not here, but sorry is. So slide number 4 is Sarai. Okay. So when I give you the link to this, you will be able to move these words into the right color. Okay. So I'm going to read out the words, and you have to decide how many syllables they have. So if you think it's 2 syllables, you move the word into the right column. Environmentally, if you think it's 2 syllables, it goes there, right? If you think it's got 5 syllables, there. See? Does that make sense? Okay, here comes the link so that you'll be able to move. Please access the link. Give me the thumbs up when you have it. Find your slide. Okay, I'm going to read each word twice, and I'd like you to move the words into the correct column. So, country. Country. Footprints. Footprints. Environmentally. Environmentally. Developed. Developed. Ecological. Ecological. Okay, so let's check the answers. Paula, which do you think goes in the first column? Okay, you've got country and footprints. Excellent. Agreed, right? Christian, what goes in the second? Yeah, developed. Agreed. And ecological, Sarai? You agree that it goes in the third column?
Yes, the third one.
Yeah. And Paula, environmentally, you think it goes where? How many syllables does it have? Count them. Environmentally. Run out of fingers. So it must be 6. Environmentally. 6. Great. So yeah, you're right. Environmentally is 6. Okay, let's try saying them all together. Right. Country. Everybody repeat. Country.
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 Good. Footprints.
Footprints.
Footprint.
Developed.
Developed.
Develop.
Developed.
Developed.
Ecological.
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 Paula.
Ecological.
And finally, environmentally.
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 Great.
Environmentally.
Good job. Now, question, which of these are nouns? 2 of them are nouns.
Footprints.
Footprints and
Country.
country. Good, yes. Which 2 are adjectives?
Developed and ecological.
Developed and ecological. Good job, yes. And you can tell by the fact that they combine together, right? So developed, country, they go together. And so the noun, the adjective usually goes before the noun, doesn't it? All right. And same with ecological and footprints. And what adjective does the adverb modify? What
Environment.
adjective?
Environment.
What? This is an adverb. What adjective does it modify? Let's have a look again at this. Back at our text. It modifies this word, right? Friendly. That's an adjective. Now, adverbs modify adjectives. They can also modify verbs, but here's an adjective. Okay, good. Now, going to give you a gist reading task. Just make sure I've got it set up properly. All right, that's good. Now, I'd like you to look into the chat in a second. And you will see this. This will come up on your computer. Okay, I'd like you to read the text in 2 minutes and choose the best title that represents the text. All right, imagine this is an article in a newspaper with a headline. Which is the best headline for it? Okay, so you've got 3 minutes to read. No, 2 minutes should be enough to read and choose. I'll set the clock starting now. Can you confirm that you have received the Google form link? Okay, so you've just got to, at the end of the 2 minutes, you click, you make your choice. Don't choose other, just go for 1, 2, or 3, okay? Just make it easier. Starting now. Okay, 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Okay, now, so please make your choice and press next. You all done? Yeah? Okay, let's see what you put for your responses. Okay, I need your responses.
Open a second reading activity.
Oh yeah, okay. All right, so let's move on to the second one then. All right, so this time you've got more time. So I'd like you to spend 4 to 5 minutes and mark the statements true or false. So the WWF think we will all be living on 2 new planets 50 years from now. So what do you think? Let's do this one as an example. What do you think? Is that true? Do they really think that? Or is it, use your power of inference. Do you think they really think that, or they're just trying to make us a bit worried? This one. True or false? What do you think? Probably false, right? Yeah. Okay. So click that button. False, right. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 3 to 4 minutes to do the other questions individually, and then we'll compare answers. So please do 2 through 8. When you're done, you press submit. Okay, you've got about 15 seconds. When you're done, please submit your answers on the Google form. Here it is again, in case you lost the form. Press the little purple button down at the bottom that says submit. Once you've ticked all the answers, and let's check. We've got 2 responses so far. Okay, so let's check the first question for the general understanding. Yeah, I think the best answer was time's running out. Yeah, because does it say that humans are an endangered species? Yeah, it's more about how time. There's not much time to stop the degradation. Yeah, so that's false. Written by scientists. True, yeah, because it says it comes from scientific data from across the world in paragraph 2. In the last 30 years, we have used nearly 30% of Earth's natural resources. True, yeah. It's true because it says here, doesn't it? 1/3 of the natural world has been destroyed by humans in the last 30 years. So yeah. Cod numbers have fallen by about 50%. It's more than 50%, isn't it? So it's false. Yeah. Correct. There is none of the original forest left in southeast Brazil. Why is it false, Paula? Can you tell me why it's false?
Because he says less than 7% of the original forest.
That's right.
remains
So
in-
that's right. So is there some forest left? There is, right? But not much. The report blames countries like Japan and Canada for using too many resources. False. Christian, where did you find the answer to this?
In the in whole text, I don't see that mention Canada and Japan. Only mention the continent, but specifically that 2 countries, no.
Okay, but it does mention North America and Asia, right? The developed countries of North America, which would be Canada, is one of them, and Asia and Japan. Well, Japan is part of one of the developed countries of Asia. So, yeah, I think it's reasonable to infer that. So the answer would be true, not false. America uses around 8 times of the Earth's resources than Ethiopia. Sarai, what was your answer to that? This is where you had to read very carefully, right? Did you notice how carefully you had to read that?
Yeah, it says that it's 8 times, and then Ethiopia, but in Ethiopia it only says 2 hectares in Burundi, and the
Okay, so what is the footprint of the USA?
at 12.2.
Yeah, so the footprint of Ethiopia is 2, so that's 6 times, isn't it? It's not 8 times, so it must be false. Yeah. The report says that we must look harder if we want to save our world. True, yeah. Okay, so we have 2 types of reading subskills here in this activity. Can you name them? This first task, do you know what this subskill was that we're developing? Read it quickly, choose the best title.
I mean,
Is it, did you say skimming?
yes, because we are reading for the hist.
Yes, it's actually pronounced gist, gist. Yeah, so skimming for gist. Yeah, that's correct. It's skimming for gist. Yeah, so it's reading for the general idea. Now, the second one is this reading for detail. Is it intensive reading or is it extensive reading? Is it scanning? What type of task do you think this was? Think about what you were doing during this task.
So that is some specific information. So perhaps scanning.
No, it's not scanning because that's a lot faster with your eyes moving across the page. And if it was scanning, you would be looking for maybe statistics like individual words. Yeah.
Intensive reading.
It's not intensive either because that would be reading to notice maybe a piece of grammar, like
Okay, just in grammar you use this.
that would be intensive. So that was written. Okay, read and underline examples of the passive voice. That would be intensive. So, but it's not intensive. Have a look at the. It's reading for detail. Yeah, that's reading for detail. Yeah, you're reading very closely for the ideas. All right, good. So we're getting towards the end of our lesson now. So it's logical at the end of a lesson like this to maybe have a discussion. So the 4 of us, let's discuss what measures can you take to reduce your own ecological footprint? Or what measures do you take? Are you doing anything to reduce your ecological footprint? And number 2, what can your country do to promote an environmentally friendly attitude of its citizens? Okay, so you can answer either of those questions as you wish.
The first one can be recycling or watching the water consumption.
Oh. Is that what you do in your house, Sarai?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, good. Any other ideas for reducing your ecological footprint?
Yeah, me too. I apply the 3 R's. Recycling, reduce the consume, and the I don't remember the last, but for example, all the food from the vegetables I keep and I try to put in the background of my house. And the box and the bags, bottles, 1 per week, I take them to the church.
Mhm.
And the second question, I think it's difficult because this government in my country doesn't interest in the environment.
Uh-huh.
So I think they don't promote the careful of the environment.
So maybe change the government and we would get a better treatment.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It's going not to happen.
What about you, Christian? Any ideas?
Try to reduce the use of cars. Try to get to somewhere walking, maybe. And in the house, try to disconnect all the home appliance that you don't use
Uh-huh.
to reduce the electronic energy. I think that.
In my house, actually, I put a bucket when we are going to take a shower, before we are going to take a shower, because I need to keep the water. And after that, I use this water to water my house, water my plants.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Good. Now, I think we should, that's the end of our lesson. Okay, that was our demo lesson. So after the break, we'll analyze the different stages of the lesson using this page in the handbook, and then we'll do some more activities to deepen our understanding of different reading sub-skills. Okay, so let's take a break until 8:30. Sorry, 18:30, not 8:30, 18:30. I'm going to take my dogs out because they need to go out. So return at 18:30. 20 minutes is enough. We should be able to finish a bit earlier tonight. We don't have to go to 9 o'clock. Yeah. But we do need to carry on a little bit after the break. So see you shortly.
Bye.